Hello and welcome back to the Hearthstone Global Games, where I have come and broken up Ravel. Are
you giving us a ship name, Falcon? Please don't do that.
It's unintentional, but I think I'll stick with it.
Okay.
I'm breaking up Ravel. How you doing, Sottle?
I was doing great up until right then, and now I'm miserable. It caught me a little bit by surprise, actually. I was suspecting an intro video, and then we were just on camera. But here we are with another fantastic series to go into.
Yeah. Spain versus Australia. Very, very exciting. We're getting to, I mean, you were saying earlier that all of the games are important. It doesn't really matter when they're played, but we're getting to the point where they actually feel even more important, especially for these guys who've actually both lost 2 series already.
Right. I mean, it's just the way with any competition, right? Like, you look at like Premier League football, for example. There's no reason why the last game of the season is any more important than the 9th game of the season. It's 3 points just the same. But the drama is so much higher. It seems like there's so much extra on the line. Right.
Every single loss now, well, for these guys, a loss pretty much knocks them out of the competition. Not completely, because the way that it works, they could still slip in with a 3rd place. But it really is high stakes now.
It is indeed, as you start to see beautiful footage of these countries leading out with Australia there. The Sydney Opera House, one of the most famous pieces of architecture in the world, followed by Spain, which again is a beautiful country that I have had the pleasure of visiting. I got to spend some time in Barcelona, which is a wonderful, vibrant area of the world. Fantastic food, wine with every meal. What's to complain about?
I wasn't even going to ask. I've learned from Raven's mistakes that you telling us all of the places that you've been just makes us look very uncultured. Or maybe I could just not admit to not going.
Yeah, you just pretend you've been there and say, oh yeah, I had a great time in Barcelona as well. It's fun.
All right, so now you can see the players and the order that they're going to be competing in. The Hearthstone Global Games format is a best out of 5 blind pick. The players in advance decide what order they're going to play in. The teams distribute the 9 classes between them. And then they are going to now, for game number 1, for example, Ender versus Evangelion, going to be deciding now whether Ender wants to play the Druid or the Priest versus Evangelion's decks, or classes, depending on what he thinks is going to beat what Evangelion's got.
Yeah, and I think as time's gone on, the players, us, everyone involved has really started to get a handle into some of the breakpoints and some of the pairings that are really powerful, some of the mind games that you can play, trying to force your opponent into awkward positions where they don't have what appears to be a free choice, right? Where they get backed into a corner where they have to pick one of their decks, and then you could potentially punish that.
And that's exactly where the Warlock comes in. As you guys were saying earlier, we can see that Team Australia has opted to put Warlock in with the Ace decks, meaning that Ender, if they do get to the 5th game, may feel trapped into a corner and have to play whatever the deck that isn't Warlock is.
Speaking of trapped into a corner, we have ended up with Priest versus Mage, which is not probably going to be a great matchup for any given mage, although I will say the secret-y tempo mage build that's come out these days, I hesitate to just say secret mage, because people are messing around with secret mage in a lot of different ways. Some of them are still looking quite similar to the Gunter mage that we saw beforehand. Some of them are going full tempo with 1-drops and trying to curve out. The tempo focus version can do a lot better against Priest, because it's not just all in on building up that burn damage in the late game where you just outright lose to Priest of the Feast.
Right, exactly. Historically, the controlling mages have lost to the Priests, at least where Priest of the Feast's been involved.
In this meta, at least.
Ever since the Thorisan and the Evolved Kobold rotated out, allowing the mage to do the silly 1-turn kill things. The Priests just outlast the mage. However, as you were saying, the faster the mage goes, it's possible that the Priest won't be able to keep up or heal in time.
Yeah, Evangelion is a player that I got up close and personal with at DreamHack Valencia. He was the hometown boy. Of course, he represents Valencia Football Club's esports team. So he was hometown in every possible way for that event. Ended up taking it down, and it was one of the most amazing experiences that I've seen in Hearthstone, just the welling of local support. We were trying to interview him in what was essentially a little back room. We brought him back there where the casters were trying to interview. We couldn't get the interview done because a crowd of hundreds of people were just crowded outside the entrance to our room trying to get in there to take a look at him.
That's amazing.
It was an incredible experience to see, and he really, does represent hometown pride for Spain, which is exactly what Hearthstone Global Games is all about.
Exactly. I really like looking at Spain in terms of this competition, because I think they are exactly what Global Games is about. You've got Evangelion and Duck, who kind of representing the pro players in Team Spain, and then you've got Feelink and Josemi, who these guys are YouTubers. They're incredibly popular figures in the Spanish community. That's how they got their votes.
Yep.
But they're not known for their competitive professional Hearthstone. So it's up to Evangelion and Duck to bring them up to their level for this competition.
And I think that's an interesting thing about the team dynamic as well, because I spoke with Raven beforehand, whereas when teams get more comfortable with each other, you'll start to see an element of people say, all right, just shut up and let me play.
Right.
Like, I've got this. When that's going to be more the case when there are 4 equally matched pro players on a team together. When there are 2 content creators alongside 2 more experienced competitive players, they're probably going to be willing to listen to every piece of advice that they can get from their teammates.
I mean, it's something that I think it was Crane in his interview last week for Denmark was saying. He was saying, you know, I tell my teammates when to shut up. If they've got nothing worth saying, they need to just be quiet and not say it. And it's something that teams like that will have straight away. But now, as we're in, what is this, Spain's 4th game in the competition, they're going to be getting used to each other and hopefully finding the optimum method of communication.
Yeah, Spain 1 and 2 overall. Their opening week was a very shaky performance. I believe that was Burning the Quest was one of the possibilities in that, which we have seen in another very high-level tournament recently, CM versus EU. It happened again with a Mega Zero, I believe. But since then, they picked it up a little bit, started to show that they're definitely worthy contenders in this. And it is going to be, it looks like the Secret Mage from Evangelion, because we saw the Cabal Crystal Runner getting mulliganed away from the opening hand.
It's a slow version, though, as we can see at least the Trailblazer and Pyroblast, which are cards that initially when you think Secret Mage, you sort of think Tempo, Medivh's Valet, Cabal Lackey even. But as time's gone on, people have realized actually somewhere between Secret Mage and the Gunther Mage, that's where the deck is at its optimum.
Yeah, it's definitely leaning that way. I personally don't like the Cabal Lackey builds. I don't think Lackey's a particularly powerful card overall, but there is definitely a middle ground that needs to be found. And I think this is something interesting about Hearthstone Global Games, is that because of when the deck submissions come down, we often see last week's meta being played out. And, you know, Secret Mage was really a deck that came to prominence over the previous week, in time, really, for us to have seen it happening last week. But of course, because of deck submissions, we're seeing that residual Secret Mage favorite coming out now in week 6 instead.
That's right. I think that we saw 1 Secret Mage last week.
Right.
But just 1.
Did it win?
I don't recall.
Because that's a big reward, right?
I think it did,
If you can be one of the guys that's then ahead of the meta and is able to submit one of these decks a day or 2 before anyone else has really caught onto it, that's then a huge advantage to you as a team.
So Evangelion going ahead, getting the board here, actually doing what all of the mages at the moment do, except Freeze Mage.
Play Mana Worm on 1.
Into Medivh's Valet. I know that's one of your favorite things about Mage nowadays. And looking pretty good for it. The Potion of Madness, though, can be a huge punish for the Mana Worm. There's not going to be an even trade here. It's going to take a little bit of setting up, but you can actually do some pretty disgusting things by taking a Mana Worm, playing some spells, and then making a very efficient trade with it.
Yeah, you can. And I think from Spain's perspective, they do have to consider that Potion of Madness at all times. And just keep in mind, any time this Mana Worm is at 2 attack exactly, that's when it's at its most dangerous point for you as the mage. Because beyond that, of course, Potion of Madness can't hit it, and prior to that, it's not having as much impact afterwards.
Counterspell, though, coming down from Evangelion. As we can see in Ender's hand, there's actually a lot of spells that he can use to proc this. But in my opinion, Counterspell is one of the strongest things about the Secret Mage, especially against decks like Rogue, where they have to really kind of mess around and try and find the right thing to proc it with.
Yeah.
And play around it even if it's not there.
Yeah, against Rogue, it's so disgusting. Even when it's not Counterspell, it's disgusting. Because you can just play any secret going into the turn where they've set up to play their quest the next turn. They then have to waste some other spell. They have to like prep nothing just so they don't get their quest burned. Then, oh, surprise, it was Mirror Entity the whole time. And then you just play the counterspell again the next turn and actually counterspell their quest after you've got the bad spells out of their hand.
Not quite so bad against this hand of Enders right now, as there's Silence, 2 Potion of Madness, Divine Spirit, but it can, at the right time, be pretty punishing even against a Silence Priest if it can block a vital Divine Spirit, or even a Powered Shield to prevent the card draw.
So I think I like leading out with the Radiant Elemental this turn. That way you find out immediately whether it's Mirror Entity. Okay, we've now learned that it isn't. Now you can start to react, and this surprises me. That Silence is such a high-value tool for you. I thought this sequencing of leading out with the Radiant Elemental would have meant that he would have tested first with a Potion of Madness afterwards to find out if it was the counterspell or not.
Yeah, it has to be said, that wasn't ideal for Ender. He did manage to get rid of the Medivh's Valet at least, but the Mana Worm's still there, and it's now even stronger than it was before Ender took control of it.
Still doesn't have a good trade on the board, though. Crystal Runner getting picked up. This is one of the real niche skills of the deck, is deciding, very much like Thing from Below, very similar card as to, okay, do I just take my 5/5's worth of tempo now, or do I hold on to it and try and be more explosive later on? But I think Spain and Evangelion quite rightly identifying in this spot that they need this this potential board presence to be able to fight back against more Divine Spirits, against Faceless Shamblers, and against Inner Fires.
It fit very well into the curve as well. He can play Elise Trailblazer next turn, and then if he hasn't drawn a 6-mana card to play, then he can start to restock with the Arcane Intellect. Looking at Ender's hand, though, he picks up the Inner Fire, and now the Radiant Elemental is a, well, it's a 9/9.
Pretty good. Solid. It does still become vulnerable to Mana Worm and Ping here, and just think about how different a world we would be living in if this Razor Leaf could attack. The hand would be empty. That Potion of Madness would not be there. That would have got counterspelled.
Yeah.
Then the second Potion of Madness would have been used to do exactly what it did do in the process, but the humongous Razor Leaf would be able to attack and take care of things, which would then be protecting this 9/4 on the board.
It would probably be an 11/11 as well, actually, depending on if Ender decided to buff that with the Cabal Talent.
Oh, the Razor Leaf would, right. Yeah, you're right.
But unfortunately now Ender's used up one of his Inner Fires. You and Raven was saying earlier today, when the Priest runs out of Inner Fires, they find it hard to come back in any matchup.
Yeah, you're basically, at that point, you're falling back on Faceless Shamblers more often than not. You know, just trying to get a big Divine Spirit down. You've used your Inner Fires, so you then just try and turn that health into, 4 16s on the board and try and win the game with 2 of the world's biggest Twilight Drakes, essentially.
But even worse for Ender here is that he doesn't have anything in his hand. He has 1 Potion of Madness, 1 Acolyte of Pain, which Evangelion could just choose to Frostbolt away. But even if he doesn't, the Priest has no way of actually proccing the Acolyte of Pain just yet.
Right.
And with only 1 card in hand, it's unlikely that there's going to be any Wild Pyromancer shenanigans.
I'm just wondering as well, from Spain's perspective here, do you have any kind of read on what that card is in hand? Because that's the card that's been there ever since that counterspell turn, right? So there's a lot of things that you would be considering about whether or not they would have played, because as Spain, you would have been sat back there seeing the 0-mana Silence get counterspelled and being very happy about that proceeding, right? And wondering what exactly was the makeup of Australia's hand that led them to make that kind of play.
Well, Evangelion knows that it's no Silence spell because it would have been used by now. He probably doesn't expect it to be Potion of Madness because he'll think what you thought, and that that would have procced the counterspell earlier.
Yeah.
So I don't know what they would expect it to be.
5/5 here just going for board dominance from Evangelion, from Spain, and I think this is down to the crucial point that you made first, which is they're pretty confident there's no Silence effect in hand right now, right? Like, this 5/5 on board is dominant as long as Large Leaf Gentleman, or whatever Raven decided to call it last series, isn't able to attack in and take a value trade. So if that's the case, then the 5/5 on board is by far the best play.
Quite a desperate hit with the Acolyte of Pain there. Picking up a Powered Shield, that's fine. Okay, keep going through the deck. There's the Purify.
Nice.
About time. All right, things are finally looking up for Ender. And actually, we're really seeing the strength of Purify.
Oh, and then the Cleric pickup as well, just to round out the term
too.
perfectly. Drop the Cleric, heal back up to a 4/5. This is going into Fireland's turn, which is a bit unfortunate, leaving a juicy 4/5 on the board into Fireland's turn. But again, the threats are nice and diverse, which they're going to need to be because Firelands has been picked up.
Powered Shield into Purify, into Cleric Heal. Hasn't quite restocked Ender's hand, but it's looking much better than it was before. It really highlights the strength of Purify, which we would have laughed at 9 months ago. You're laughing at it now. Yeah. But it's really helped Ender come back onto this board. But now, Grime Street Enforcer. It's Enforcer, right? Enforcer from the Fire.
Sure, let's go with that one.
I'm sure that one's Informant.
Sounds right. Which one's Informant?
That is the Discovery Warrior Paladin
Okay.
and Hunter, I think.
Grime Street guy that buffs the hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
I mean, it's a really strong card when you've got 3 cards in your hand.
It is. It does actually give a little bit of information over to the opposition. I think this has always been the case with hand buff effects, particularly the Paladin cards, where you know, they buff their entire hand on turn 1, and then you can immediately go, all right, that card's True Silver, right? Like there's one card that hasn't been buffed. That sort of thing does work in this situation, because now those 2 cards on the far left aren't slow minions that are waiting to be played. They're probably just burn damage that's waiting to end. So there's not actually a lot Australia can do with that information. This isn't a bursty heal Priest deck, as we've mentioned. Like, Priest of the Feast doesn't always have a huge impact in these lists, but it is at least information that you can play with. But definitely much, much more beneficial is that huge buff effect for Spain.
And Ender really coming back into this game now with the second Northshire Cleric, going full Cleric, as they used to say back in the old Circle of Healing days, picking up a Powered Shield. Honestly, I thought Ender looked like he was in a really bad spot a couple turns ago, but look how things have changed.
Yeah, he does still need a couple of power cards to really finish the job here, though, because he could still end up a bit toothless in this spot if this board state is dealt with before he can really start to consolidate 1 or 2 more big buff cards. But Spain don't have a particularly great hand for answering these kind of board states right now, and they're just going to have to start trying to pick it apart one by one.
We probably will see more the strength of the counterspell this time, though, as Ender's not able to play the Potion of Madness at all. And if it blocks Powered Shield, then it completely stops the card draw. And as we've seen from Ender so far, every single card draw has counted. Blocking Divine Spirit seems pretty good too.
And here's the problem. It did look like that Ender had got himself into a slightly more promising position, but the fact that all 3 of those buffed minions from the Grime Street was able to be played on the same turn because of the secret pickup with the counterspell has just created this enormous board state now that's going to be so difficult for Australia to fight back against. Remember, 1 Inner Fire has been used already, which is taking so much of the threat out of this 3-12. I mean, 3-12 against this board, like, how impactful is it? Great, it can deal with that Sorcerer's Apprentice and reduce any spell value. You know the 2 cards remaining are spells right now because of that Grime Street we were talking about. But how much is it really doing to consolidate the game for you?
It is worth pointing out there are still 2 Shadow Visions in Ender's deck.
Yep.
But it doesn't look like the Faceless Shambler is going to survive long enough for that to actually be relevant, or at the very least, it's going to take a lot of damage this turn. Yeah, well, with Frostbolt, Evangelion could just clear it up easily.
And I think that is for sure the priority here. You do have to play very differently against Silence Priest than a lot of other decks in the format. I think a lot of other decks, you would have dealt with the other 2 minions potentially that turn. Say if you had like Frostbolt Valet, you just Frostbolt Valet down the other 2 minions and say, you know what, have a 3-12 against my 3 minions. Like, I'll get through it eventually. But against Silence Priest, huge minions with a lot of health sitting on the board, those are the things that you need to deal with immediately.
1 turn too late, Sottle. 1 turn too late. That could have been a 12-12. Which would have at least cleared away the Medivh's Valet and the Crystal Runner. And there's the Inner Fire. None of these looking particularly juicy, though. I even wonder if you take Purify and play it with the Ancient Watcher in hand.
Yeah, Purify is basically like drawing a Yeti here, right? Like, that's essentially what's happening, whereas Inner Fire, now that you've lost that 12 health minion, is a big downfall. And Shadow Visions, sure, you can take Shadow Visions and just recycle it, but then you're just going to end up straight back in that same spot again and have the same decision all over again. So I think just, you know, playing a Yeti this turn and hoping for the best is probably about as good as it gets.
Picking up the second Shadow Visions as well. I guess you play it now, or...
You don't have to play it now. There isn't any guarantee that you'll spend all your mana next turn anyway.
That's true.
So if you wait 1 more turn, you actually get more information about what's the right card to pick from the Shadow Vision. So I like holding on to it here.
Ender's now picked up his second Inner Fire, though. That's it. He can't possibly get any more from Shadow Vision. So unless he gets to play it on a card and then Faceless Shambler it straight away, then he's only going to get 1 more effect like that. So kind of completely running out of threats now. Radiant Elemental is a pretty good card to pick up, though, if he wants to play all of his spells.
Is it Lyra plan, though? That's my big question now. It might be that we just see heal pass for a couple of turns and just hope Lyra is in the next 2 or 3 cards in his deck, and then just really just go off with this entire hand in one turn.
Does seem very strong. He's got time as well. There's only, well, now 6 damage on the board. There's the ping, and then there's this 1 card in hand, which worst case scenario is a Pyroblast. That's only 10 damage.
He also knows it's a spell, and he knows it's not Arcane Intellect because it's not being cast in these situations. So he knows almost certainly that it's Pyroblast, because you can also start ruling out the other cards. Like, Fireball was a great removal card that could have been used against his board state 2 or 3 turns ago. Fireland's Portal, hell yes, that thing would have been jammed against any given board state. So Australia, if they're paying attention, and when this team dynamic, you often do just have one player that sat as a spotter, just making these kind of hand reads. Wow, that tome is huge. So is that one.
Okay, this really is a value-heavy Secret Mage. It is somewhere towards the Gunther side of mage things. Now, there's the Lyra.
Played for and got, honestly. I mean, they've been rewarded for the greed here, just trying to hold on, knew they had to make something happen. As you said, once that second Inner Fire got drawn, the conventional plan of just make big threats and kill you with them probably wasn't going to work anymore. So they needed to find an alternate backup plan, and Lyra is pretty much the queen of alternate backup plans.
This is going to be quite the hand restock. Only 2 spells left in the deck, but there are going to be a lot of spells in the hand in just a moment. Now it's going to be a question of, can Evangelion deal with Lyra next turn? And the answer is a resounding yes. And there's a meteor there, for Pete's sake.
There is. A little bit weird because Purify just doesn't really have nice targets this turn. He couldn't Purify the Potion of Madness minion before attacking because it would have been bounced back immediately, and he wants to suicide it into the 4/3. He's now had to Purify his Radiant Elemental, which means he now can't play his second Purify because he's lost the discount effect. And just to make sure that thing well and truly shuts up, he's going to jam a Silence on it as well.
There was a really frustrating second there for Team Australia where it showed the Mind Blast still as 1 mana, but it was unplayable because of the Purify. Okay, and Evangelion just getting more and more value, picks up the Ngoro pack, gets rid of Lyra, and things are really heavily leaning in his direction. Unless Ender can find a big minion that he can make much bigger and then copy in the next couple of turns, then this game is just going to go to the mage.
I'm going to go ahead and Purify the Watcher now, which I find a little bit unusual. He could have played the Watcher, played the Talon Priest on the Watcher, and then just shambled the 4/8. Right. And then, you know, next turn you can Purify. Sure, you lose the stats, but you've front-loaded a lot more tempo that way, right? You have a 4/8 and a 4/5 on the board attacking next turn.
Yeah, it's pretty scary that Ender's not able to play the Talon Priest and the Shambler this turn. If he now just plays the Shambler on this, then yeah, I completely agree with you. It would have ended up better the way that you described it without playing the Purify. He may decide that he doesn't need to play the Shambler this turn and just buff up the Watcher and heal his face, which, if he is playing around Pyroblast, he knows that this is one-off lethal for the mage. Well, with Glyph, that might just do it.
It might. Glyph Fish for lethal seems like a decent start here. As you mentioned, one-off with the Pyroblast that they know about, but they might even say, you know what, why even bother taking the, quote, risk of going for a lethal setup and just use the Forbidden Flame here? Although they can actually do both. They can Glyph first, look for lethal, and then if that whiffs, they still have that 8 damage Forbidden Flame to take care of the board.
Well, they've got an Ice Block up too, so even just Pyroblasting the face here, unless you're expecting a Priest of the Feast,
sure,
that's probably safe.
Yeah. It's one of those interesting dilemmas in Hearthstone about what exactly does the word safe mean in any given position. Setting yourself up to just end the game next turn, that is safe in a lot of ways because it gives your opponent the least time to climb back in. But a lot of people then favor, hey, if I just deal with my opponent's board state, then that's the safest. But the safest thing is just to get the card you need off your Glyph and end the game right now.
That'll do it. A little clap there from Evangelion, looking very happy.
And why wouldn't you? Huge, important, crucial game for both of these teams, Spain and Australia, both really coming down to the nitty-gritty of this group now, and it's Spain that are getting themselves on the board. And as you mentioned, there is an interesting dichotomy in Spain between the pro players like Evangelion and the content creators. And in that kind of situation, it's important that Evangelion is leading by example, let's say, right? He's a DreamHack winner. He needs to be the guy getting his wins on the board, and now he can sit back behind the scenes, help out the rest of his team.
I remember speaking to Evangelion 3-ish weeks ago, and him saying, look, the job for us this week is to train up the YouTubers. We want to all be on a similar wavelength.
They have a montage.
Yeah, quite possibly. I didn't get to see it though. That could have been one of the videos for the break.
I was going to say, it's win-win, right? Like, there's training, you have the montage, the content creators then turn that montage into a YouTube video, farm the ad revenue. It's just win-win.
But speaking to Evangelion yesterday, he was saying that he knows that Team Spain need to win their next 2 games, or they probably don't have a chance to qualify to the next phase of the competition.
Right.
So the words that he used were that they're fighting till the end.
Nice. It's the kind of spirit we like to see. And of course, Evangelion himself is representing the team as their primary professional Hearthstone player. He's representing one of these kind of new wave of football clubs that have got themselves into esports. Like, quite often they start out with like testing the water with like a FIFA player, right? Like, they pick up a FIFA player to represent the football team and then see how it goes from there. And Evangelion, of course, representing his hometown team of Valencia CF, as they are known. But moving on now, it's going to be Johan and Duck coming up against each other now. What do you know about either of these two guys, Falco?
Well, a really interesting thing about Duck, which actually is quite relevant today, it's actually a note that I have from last time I was here casting HGG, is that Duck hit Legend most recently with Secret Mage. So the fact that Secret Mage has since then rose to dominance, he's probably one of the players at the forefront of the archetype.
That makes a lot of sense to me, and you can see a couple more facts here. Anchor with 2 top 10 ladder finishes for Europe in winter season, and massive card game history as well. Oh, he's from Barcelona as well. I may have even just walked past him in the beautiful streets of Barcelona one day and not even known it.
Yeah, well the thing about the Secret Mage is not going to be relevant this game because we've already seen Spain with the Secret Mage, but it was piloted very, very well by Evangelion. It was quite different to any of the lists that we've seen before, very control-y, as he said. And that may be one of the reasons that they were so comfortably able to beat the Silence Priest with it.
And how do you feel about the lineup ordering as well in general? Like Evangelion and Duck going out 1 and 2. Like, do you think that's important? Like, as I said, kind of leading by example, and then if they can get to a 2-0 point, then pressures off the content guys?
Well, it is really important that Spain win today, and it makes sense to me, at least, to have Evangelion and Duck as 2 out of the first 3 players. No, it didn't necessarily matter if they are the first 2, but at least it means that if there's some 3-0 scenario, they both got to play.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes sense. But Australia, we probably haven't talked as much about as we should do. There's some very accomplished players on that team as well. And, we've been focusing on the Evangelion thing, probably sold them just a little bit short. They're probably one of the slight underperformers overall, honestly, when you consider the power of their team and, honestly, how well these players compete within the APAC region that they're part of the Asia-Pacific region. And they do very, very well in terms of gathering HCT points, showing up in APAC tournaments and getting top 8s and top 16s, etc. Most of these players have a very storied history in that region. And
Navi, who we're going to get to very soon, probably the most well-known of the team just because of his stream. They're incredibly accomplished, as you said. And going in as the underdog, at least in this series so far, as Spain took the first game, they're going to want to sort that out.
Keeping Quest against Unknown Mage is an interesting decision in and of itself. There was still kind of hotly contested when everyone was playing Gunter Mage. I was actually part of a fairly extensive argument on Twitter about whether it's correct to even keep the quest against Gunter Mage. Spoilers, it isn't. But now, of course, you're dealing with the threat of Secret Mage as well, in which case this is a whole new dynamic. Do I want the quest in this matchup? So it's a really tough decision against Unseen Mage to decide whether or not you want the quest. And the real problem is that, yes, the quest reward is nice, but the way these games play out against any kind of Mana Worm into Burn Mage, is that you take chip damage over the early turns. Even if you're axing down minions, their minions and their removal is more efficient than your taunts, so they push through, they deal a little bit of extra damage, and then suddenly when you complete your quest, you have 14 health, 16 health. Is that enough to play with for the rest of the game? No, probably not.
So the most important thing for the warrior is actually that hero power and gaining of armor generally. So throwing down the armor smith on turn 2, Team Spain obviously believing that they're going to get a little bit of value from it now. They just need to maintain against this onslaught that Australia have started putting down onto the board.
Tar Creep is a great pickup, yeah, and his War Axe is going to be able to take care of the 4-3 here. Tar Creeper is going to be able to develop. Attacking first before the War Axe would be an interesting choice here, considering that you would lose the armor development, but I guess they are concerned about potential mirror entity implications, and they're getting caught up in the sequencing as to when they play Tar Creeper as opposed to their sequencing of attacks. It's actually a lot of things to consider to get this turn right through the threat of any given potential secret from the opponent.
Yeah, and it's actually quite difficult to get the sequencing perfect, especially when you've got 3 people in your ear kind of telling you what to do, and not necessarily all telling you in the correct order. But there you go. Decides not to keep the armor. Not too relevant at the moment, as there's no shield slam in hand. I believe that's the only important thing about keeping the armor instead of health.
Well, Alex Draza as well would matter for armor versus health.
Right.
Not likely to see it now that you know that it's a secret mage, but you are against a mage, so maybe it's an outside consideration.
Some pretty crazy stuff going on Jowan's side. We've got Pyros in hand, which has been seeing more and more play over the last couple of weeks. And one of those primordial glyphs actually came from a babbling book. So Jowan able to get spell after spell with a discount. They're going to have a lot of burn later on. Also, we haven't mentioned the Yogg in the room.
The giant Yogg in the room. and there is actually an elephant in the room from Spain's side here as well, we talked about whether or not they keep the quest. They've kept it, and now it's turn 4, and they still haven't played it yet because of the War Axe that they wanted to. And now with Counterspell being cleared, there was a potential just for an enormous disaster to happen at some point. So the slam coming out there definitely makes a lot of sense. But now you can see already 2 mana to spend that turn. Do I need to get this quest developed, or would I rather have 2 armor? Well, I'd rather have 2 armor. Well, that's kind of the case for the rest of the game, right? So, like, it begs the question of what this quest is even doing in your hand.
And against all mages, exactly. Yeah. I guess that they came to the conclusion that even if they need to armor up over the first couple of turns and play minions, they want to get the quest onto the board sooner rather than later, so that when the time comes, they can apply the pressure. Whether that was correct or not, well, I guess that we will see soon.
This is a pretty powerful curve of minions that's coming out from the Secret Mage here. This is not always the way that things go for them, but, you know, being able to get a couple of early minions down, which did get answered by the War Axe, but then curving Cabal Crystal Runner as a 5-5 into Pyros as a 6-6, it's actually going to get a lot of minion pressure onto the Warrior.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of conversation about Pyros recently, as I said before, but this is a sheer example of why the card is so good. The rest of Jowan's hand is very situational. I mean, one of them's a 10-drop, and Primordial Glyph's great, but it doesn't really do much to the board immediately. Pyros is the perfect card to drop on turn 6.
All right, so Fireplume is going to come down. I believe they've only missed, what, 1 taunt on it so far? That one Tar Creeper that was played earlier on, so not a huge detriment to them not having played it just yet, but we'll see if the Sulfuras actually ends up having any kind of significant impact on the game later on.
Ali Armorsmith tends to be pretty great in this matchup. Again, gaining more and more armor. It's exactly how we said that the Warrior wins. However, it's just dealt with so easily by Jowan here. I don't even know if Duck can afford to play it. It's just Pyros and a ping.
Pyros and a ping.
Sounds good, doesn't it?
It does.
It's good to say.
It's very pleasing. But otherwise, I mean, what is your turn? Like, execute, pass? That doesn't seem too delightful either. It feels like Armorsmith is just kind of the best of a bunch of bad choices in this position.
Using an execute to put a 10-10 in your opponent's hand doesn't feel great, does it?
It doesn't.
Oh, the look of concentration on Doug's face right now. Don't forget, I don't think we've mentioned it yet in this series, but both players are hooked up to the rest of the team over voice comms. As with every game in the Hearthstone Global Games, it's full communication allowed amongst the team players.
So, in the light of no real good plays being immediately obvious, I start looking for kind of weird creative plays. Just looking at the way your hand plays out, there was potential just to brawl that turn, as miserable as it looked. Like, you had a high roll opportunity of the Armorsmith winning. Then on the following turn, you could potentially go Ali Armorsmith and execute in the same turn. If you're doing that, there's also a consideration to just throw the Armorsmith into the Pyros first, so that there's damage on both minions, and then just brawl to kill one of them. I mean, that whole thing sounds bizarre, but firstly, remember you're looking at a turn that was pretty terrible in the first place. Secondly, Secret Mage is not a deck that just has endless minions that it can throw at you, right? Like, once you've dealt with the Mana Worms, the Cabal Crystal Runners, and the Pyros, that's most of their big threats gone. After that, you're dealing with kind of 2/3s, right, for the rest of the deck. So maybe Brawl just killing one big minion there was actually fairly reasonable.
It looks like that may end up being the turn now. This way you're at least dealing with 2 minions, possibly even 2 big minions, and there isn't much else for Duck to do here. What's he going to do? Battle Rage, draw 1 card?
Right.
That being said, I can't see when he's going to get a better Battle Rage.
It's interesting because, yeah, this looks like a better Brawl, but you have a 66% chance here of not being able to do anything with your Execute, whereas the other way around, you could have forced yourself a good Execute outcome. I'm not saying that line of play is better by any means. It's just they were looking at such a weird, awkward turn, that turn, and that's the kind of turn where you see really, really good players find something that no one else saw, just to find a line that digs them out of it.
There's a lot of conversation going into this Brawl, though. They were hovering over the Battle Rage for quite some time there, genuinely thinking that they're not going to get a better one. Looks like that's how they're going to start with this turn. Bloodhoof Brave, not going to do it, though. Let's see what happens with this Brawl. If Pyros survives, this is a disaster for Duck.
I wonder about the Battle Rage first there as well, because, I mean, there must have been a card they were looking for that they would have played that turn over the Brawl for that sequencing to be correct, because now leaving the 5-1 up, they probably were saying, or like the other argument is to say, okay, we wouldn't execute the 5-1 even if it lived, because next turn we just jam Primordial Drake into it anyway, and that does the job for us. But that was definitely not a cut and dry draw first turn, and I think that's what all that discussion was about. I think they always intended to Battle Rage and Brawl that turn. It's just which order is correct to get it done in.
Right. Now, second glyph. This one came from the Babbling Book, and it's the second glyph in a row for Team Australia that's given them the option of a Frostbolt. Now, 0 mana Frostbolts tend to be pretty good cards, but it looks like we're at the stage in the game where Jowen's like, I just want to deal as much damage as possible.
Oh, they would have loved a Mirror Entity if it's in the deck. I think from the look on Jowen's face, there probably is a Mirror Entity in the deck that he went fishing for there as well, because he knows how good Primordial Drake is against his board this turn.
So the question for Team Australia now is this Greater Arcane Missiles good enough to get the job done and get rid of this Primordial Drake? Firelands Portal,
that guy looks solid.
Being picked up looks pretty good. Yeah, the maths works out with the ping there as well. Oh my goodness.
That guy looks pretty good.
Definitely one of the better options that you can get from your Firelands Portal.
Yeah. 69 possible options from Firelands Portal, I believe, is the number, and of course Doomguard is one of the absolute best. 3 charge minions in total, I think, dealing 6 damage, 5 damage, and 2 damage. But you would rather have 5/7 Doomguard over 6/2 Leroy the majority of the time, unless it's just direct lethal.
Exactly. What's the 2-attack charge that comes from?
Tundra Rhino.
Ah, yeah, of course. Yeah. Another really sorry-looking hand from Team Spain down there. The quest is 4 out of 7, so even if it did go down on turn 1 and count that Tar Creeper, they still wouldn't be close to completing it yet. It's just not worked out very well. Looks like Duck actually considering Whirlwind Execute here.
It's an interesting time to pause and think about Whirlwind Execute, because that means you've already decided that if you're Whirlwinding, you'd rather have a 5/5 than a 2/6, right? Which is a decision in itself.
Oh, I stand corrected. He's
spicy.
Going. If the Bloodhoof Brave wins this, then that obviously seems good, but never mind, because it got counterspelled.
Yeah, I mean, it was all secret testing that turn, right? Like, the Bloodhoof came down, they'd ruled out Mirror Entity on the previous turn with the Primordial Drake, Bloodhoof came down, and then they're thinking about, okay, what do we want to get counterspelled? What's more valuable in this position? And they think at this point, they've probably dealt with the majority of the minions, but they know there's a 10-mana 10/10 in the hand, against which Whirlwind Execute is a pretty solid combination.
They probably don't know there's a 10-mana 7/5 in the hand that could do some crazy things, but this game, it doesn't look like Jowen's going to need it.
They know there is a card in the opening hand that has been there, I believe, since turn 1.
It was, yeah, it was mulliganed in, yeah.
So yeah, you're looking at kind of Pyroblast, Yogg, those sorts of things, if you're getting any kind of read on that card whatsoever. There is the Mirror Entity, confirming that was what they were looking for with the Arcanologist going into the Drake turn. But I think the way that turn turned out in the end, with the Firelands Portal draw into the Doomguard, I don't think they'll be complaining too much.
I mean, 5/7 is already great stats from Firelands Portal, and the fact that it just gets charged as well is, yeah, it's pretty strong. Entity gonna come down this turn. If there's a second Primordial Drake, then Jowen's got it covered this time.
And second Brawl has been used as well. They would have been a little worried committing a second minion and a Mirror Entity at the same time, because then suddenly player minion Brawl is actually a very high value turn. But with second Brawl gone, they're absolutely not worried about that situation at all.
I wonder if the speed in which Duck made that play last turn, that was one of the fastest turns we've seen in HGG. It was just instant execute. I wonder if that maybe would have given away the fact that a second execute had been picked up.
Possible. It's definitely worth thinking about, but either way, Australia are choosing not to respect it, and I think they're quite right in doing so. Even if this goes down, you can see Warrior's hand is completely dry for Spain, meaning that they can just keep going here. Greater Arcane Missiles, the Mirror Entity on the 1/4 might not be ideal, but at least it's something, and they have just that massive ultimate backup plan with the Yogg in hand eventually as well.
Once again, though, Yogg just seems completely unnecessary. Like, it's a card that Australia could play to lose this game from what seems like an unlosable position at the moment.
Yeah, Yogg, it's not a card you ever want to need. But in those situations where you do need it, you're glad to have it sometimes.
Arcane Missiles going...
Probably the most positive thing I've ever said about Yogg-Saron.
Missile's going to go ahead and immediately deal with the minion and also 6 base damage. Seems like it was a pretty good pick from that Kabbalist Tome earlier, and now, not Kabbalist Tome, Primordial Glyph earlier, and now Duck picks up a Whirlwind. That doesn't seem good enough to me. You're the expert, Sottle. Is there...
Well, you have to play it, because otherwise you are dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. But not the draw he's looking for. He is going to prevent lethal, and I think that well played means that he thinks he's staring down Pyroblast and not Yogg-Saron on the left-hand side of the hand. Firelands Portal pickup, though, is going to end the game just nicely, even without another Doomguard. Although, wow, Australia's Fireland Portals are on point today.
Yeah, 5-6 again. I think, what's the average? Somewhere around 4-4, 4-5, something
It's, yeah, it's slightly bigger than that. It's 4.3, 5.1, something like that, yeah.
So yeah, okay. Well, Jowen takes the win, and that ties up the series. It's going to get really stressful from this point on, because again, we've spoken about this a lot, but whichever team loses is almost as good as out of the competition now. And now we're 1-1. Even more as time goes on, every game is counting.
Yeah, I mean, as the tournament goes on, of course, there is more seemingly on the line for any individual game, and it's really hard to decipher in a lot of groups exactly what everything means, because everyone's compacted around the middle of the group in a few of them. But as you said, the records for these two teams, meaning that, you know, no more leeway is allowed. Yeah. They have to start winning. They have to start winning soon, especially, I would say, in Australia's case with a 0-2 record so far.
Navi Oot coming up next for Australia. We touched upon him briefly earlier. He's a huge Control Warrior player, though Warrior is being reserved for Twiz later. And a big Australian streamer, as I said before, probably one of the most notable, most famous Hearthstone players in Australia. Always are doing big things in the Apex scene, playoffs.
I think Navi as well qualified for last call
Right.
in the previous year, which is just a staggering achievement in itself when you consider how many players he's up against in the APAC region.
Right.
For him to be making an appearance at last call just means that he is one of the top point earners of the entire year of that region.
And that's no small achievement either. When you look at the numbers of the people that play in the different servers, the main indication that we have is how many legends there are on each server. And whenever you look at the Asia Pacific region, there is a lot more legend players than there are in Europe and NA.
Well, that's specifically China, I think you're looking at. Like the Chinese server just literally has tens upon tens upon tens of thousands. I don't know if it's got up to hundreds of thousands yet. But yeah, of course, APAC is a huge region as well. I think maybe Europe has more legends than it at the end of it. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah, it's a very, very competitive region. It's a region, most importantly, that Naviu has found himself very, very accomplished within.
Right. And people know it. That's why people watch his stream. That's why he's there almost every day doing his thing. People are watching.
I think people also just quite like looking at him, let's be honest.
Yeah. But there is sometimes we've got the YouTubers from Team Spain who are popular because they're great personalities. They make the great content. They please the Spanish community. But then you've also got the big streamers now looking at Naviu, who's popular. Because, yeah, great personality, etc. He's a really good player.
Yes.
And popularity and being good isn't necessarily mutually exclusive.
No, I mean, there are quite a few players. We've seen, for example, Calento being the shining example of this, right? Like, started off as a dominant competitive player, transformed himself into this huge, everyday 10,000 viewer streamer, huge follower, huge content creator. And then one day he just went, you know what? I'm going to play a couple of tournaments again, smash this tournament in China, get rank 1 legend on 2 different servers. Like, these people don't lose it, right? Like, you don't lose the ability to be a good Hearthstone player just because you start focusing on streaming and content creation. And I don't think, from Navi's perspective, that's ever really been the case. Like, he streams as a side product of what he does, but what he does is be a competitive Hearthstone player.
I mean, when you stream, you're playing Hearthstone anyway, and depending
checks out.
Depending on the way in which you choose to run your stream, you can put yourself in as an entertainer, or you can put yourself in as, you know what, I'm one of the best Hearthstone players. I'm just going to do what I do best. I'm going to learn. I'm going to enter tournaments. I'm going to grind. I'm going to get the best ranks. That's what my stream is. And if you're streaming like that, then yeah, it's not going to impact your gameplay in a negative way. If anything, it's just going to improve it.
But Navi and Feelink are going to come up against each other now. It's going to be Paladin versus Hunter, and this really is just going to be a struggle for early board control. Both of these decks are fully capable of snowballing early, although Naviu goes for a conservative mulligan with the Hydrologist and True Silver, and I was going to say what this indicates to me is that he's not a very early game heavy deck that's looking for that Snowball Murloc package, and seeing cards now like Stonehill and Primordial Drake come out of the mulligan seems to confirm that. If you have the full suite of, Murloc Tidecaller into everything else in your deck, you mulligan hard. All 4 cards gone for that kind of start, because that's where the game against Hunter will be won and lost. If you have more late game stability, like Naviu clearly does, then he's free to take a slightly more conservative mulligan plan.
I think as time has gone on and hungry crabs have joined the meta, Paladins have slowed down. We get to the point where now some of these lists, the only Murloc they run is Hydrologist because the card is just so darn strong. And then the rest of the list is very, very slow. We can see the Defender, the Primordial Drake. And if Navi is able to sustain, get to the late game, use Rag Light Horde, maybe Rag Light Lord.
I was going to say, don't repeat what you said the first time, whatever you do.
Maybe Forbidden Healing. And even Lay on Hands is seen sometimes. He could have a good shot against the Hunter. It's just going to be about stopping the Hunter's early game. And as we can see in Feelink's hand, this early game is lacking.
Lacking would be an understatement. Yeah, this early game is miserable from Feelink. But I think you mentioned Hydrologist, and it's a really surprising card to me. I mean, I thought it was going to be solid. I didn't think it was going to be as ubiquitous as it ended up being. And it's actually, if anything, just got buffed again, because now Counterspell has come into the format with Secret Mage, and the only spells in a Paladin deck are incredibly high value until you play a Hydrologist and then get a 1-mana spell to break the Counterspell with.
What is it going to take to convince you, Sotul, that Paladin Secrets are strong cards? I mean, Mysterious Challenger came along, still not believing in the Paladin Secrets?
All right, Dad, you go ahead and just put 6 Paladin Secrets in your deck and see how far you get, then we'll talk.
Okay, yeah, I don't think I'm going to try and do that. Getaway Kodo obviously being the highlight of Hydrologist most of the time. Whether that's what Naviut's going to want against Hunter, though, I'm not so sure. Noble Sacrifice is missing from this selection, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think it's Kodo just because of lack of anything else. Repentance there doesn't really do a great deal. Like, even if you line up like the Dream Repentance on what? A high main? Well, great. It's still death rattling into 2/2/2 hyenas. It's not really getting you anywhere. So Getaway Kodo, just to make sure you get some extra stability out of perhaps a Taunt minion or a Ragnaros Light Lord later on, can definitely be a big benefit. But crucially, that True Silver Keep, which, as I mentioned, he can afford to be a bit greedier with because of the extra late game in his deck, is going to pay out big here, being able to take care of that hyena before it starts to make a huge mess of this game.
Yeah, if things had been picked up for Feelink a little bit differently, if the Alley Cat had come into his hand on turn 1 rather than after the hyena, things could have been a lot better for Spain. As Felix picks up the Trog Beast Rager, a card which has been seeing a little bit more play in Hunter recently. Recently it's going to be buffing up a beast in hand. There's a lot of beasts in Felix's hand for it to choose between.
Would you say recently? I think, if anything, this card was in the very early Hunter lists in the expansion and then kind of melted away from my perspective.
Okay. I've seen a lot of it recently. Over the last week or so, it seems to have been picked up a little bit.
Interesting. I haven't been running into it too much. Isn't it always weird how you get these little micro messes?
Yeah.
Like, I think Lorinda is the most notorious person that we know for this, where he seems to exist in a strange Bizarro world, where his exclusive ladder meta is completely different from everyone else's.
Yeah.
Him and Noxious. Noxious has his own Noxious meta as well, somehow.
All right, Beast Rager buffing up the Savannah High Main. That's going to come in handy later if Feelink gets that far, as Naviut now picks up Rockpool Hunter. Another Murloc that can fit into the slower and faster decks, although with the appearance of Gentle Megasaur as well, it's looking like Naviut's deck is a little bit faster than we gave it credit for.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna roll out the Paladin is on a spectrum line thing again, aren't we? I mean, there is just this sliding scale of how you put together your Murloc mid-range control Paladin, where there's maybe, 16 to 18 kind of core cards that always go in there, and then you just slide the scale from aggressive to controlling and see where you end up with the rest. But with a lot more of these Murlocs now coming out, I will say I'm a little bit surprised that Australia was so timid with their mulligan.
Getaway Kodo now seems pretty good to just grab an extra Taunt minion. Naviut didn't get the best selection the first time, going with the Abomination. Maybe next time he'll get a Tyrion.
I think this is where the buff from the Beast Rager might actually have not been ideal for Spain. I think, High Main in itself, it's the most threatening minion in your deck already, right? It's going to require the key removal. It's going to be the card that your opponent is reserving Outdoor Peacekeeper for. Right? So you would rather have the buff diversify and hit this Nesting Rock instead, so you could have gone big threat into big threat turn after turn. Like, that's not to say a 4/7 isn't a big threat.
But a 5/8 with the Taunt.
Right, I think you'd rather go 5/8 into 6/5 High Main than 4/7 into 7/6 High Main.
That's true. And now Feelink is going to get the... what sort of bad news that was a Getaway Kodo? I guess it doesn't matter too much, as he's got control of the board. The Taunt that Naviut gets from the Stonehill Defender isn't going to matter until later, and now we get our answer. Murloc Tidecaller. This is just a faster Paladin deck.
Yep, just curving aggressively to Curator by the looks of things because of the Primordial Drake being in there as well.
Though again, you mentioned the Spectrum, and it's weird because Murloc Tidecaller and Primordial Drake in the deck together.
Yeah.
That seems kind of odd. Earlier on, the game that you and Raven cast, I saw there was a Curator and Finger in the mulligan together. And again, Finger typically goes in the faster Murloc decks, the Curator in the slower ones.
Adapting just one Murloc here, Australia. Stealth would allow them to land Spike Ridge Steed, almost guaranteed next turn. Spain would have the option to then play around that with a Deadly Shot if they want to, but then switching that back to Australia's perspective, A, they have to have the Deadly Shot, B, it's a low-value Deadly Shot anyway.
Or a 1/2, yeah.
Right, and C, it's interrupting their high main turn if they do that. So, I mean, plus attack here is the most competitive on the board, but it means that Spike Ridge Steed is probably going to get stranded in your hand for quite some time over the next couple of turns.
Yeah, well, it depends what Feelink decides to do this turn, because it's actually not straightforward for him to clear both of these minions.
Sure.
He would have to use up an Unleash the Hounds or a Deadly Shot, and he may just decide the better play is drop Savannah Highmane, in which case Spike Ridge Steed could come down next turn.
It's turn 6 against Paladin. I honestly think mental flag #1 for any Hearthstone player right now is clear Paladin's board on turn 6. It's so devastating when it lands.
But that counters your answer. It's turn 6. #1 plan is usually
drop Highmane.
Yeah,
right.
so it's a tough turn for Spain.
That's true. And I guess when I was going through the stealth considerations, one of the things I said is that this interrupts your opponent's Highmane turn. Well, this board state can't be answered anyway, which means if they want to answer this board state, that interrupts the Highmane turn anyway. So there is no real need to go for the stealth in that situation.
There you go. Feelink comes to the same conclusion as you. He's going to clear the board, buff up the Savannah Highmane again.
Is it now an 8/7?
Yeah.
Okay.
But Outdoor Peacekeeper would be even more punishing. Then again, now you've seen the Murloc Tidecaller, do you expect an Outdoor Peacekeeper in this deck? You definitely expect Tarim at some point, but...
Yes, it's a very good question. And answering the question of, which cards do you expect out of any given Paladin deck are unfortunate. But one card that you do always expect is Consecration, which finds its way into the right-hand side of Navi's hand. And now there is a lot of board control here, and the Savannah Highmane is going to come into play, but now, crucially, they have not been able to deny this board position for the Spike Ridge Steed as long as they would have liked to.
Elder Longneck, quite an unfortunate pickup from the Jordan McCaw there, because Feelink had to play the Savannah Highmane, but now there's no guarantee that he's going to get a minion with 5 or more attack in hand anytime soon, to proc the Elder Longneck. So that might just be a Magma Rager.
Live in the Magma Rager dream.
Right.
Magma Rager is my favorite.
Is it?
Yeah. It's time to savor it.
Oh. You don't seem like a Magma Rager kind of guy, Subtle.
I'm not. I am a Ben Brode rapping kind of guy, though.
Aren't we all?
That Consecration pickup was so huge. Just let him create this position now. Like, this game is probably going to look fairly one-sided for the rest of proceedings now, just because of the back-to-back-to-back power plays that Australia now have available to them, which is all the 8 drops and Spike Ridge Steed. None of this would have been even remotely possible if that Consecration hadn't cleared the board state, because that created this exact platform where it was created 2-3 against nothing that they were then able to rebuild from.
Huffer does allow the Savannah Highmane to go into the face if Feelink so desired, but I believe that old myth of if Savannah Highmane hits the face, then the Hunter wins the game. I don't think that applies here, because that singular 8 damage just doesn't seem like enough. There's a Ragnaros Lightlord in hand, there's a Spike Ridge Steed, well there's 3 other taunts as well.
Crucially, he would be one short of a game-ending Primordial Drake, I believe. If Huffer went into the 1/4, Highmane went face, there's only 6 damage on board, which can't pop the Highmane before the Primordial Drake came down. So it's not game over if he just hits face here, but it's not looking too rosy if he trades either. I think, honestly, jamming this Highmane damage to face is almost certainly his best chance, but looks like he's going to play a little bit more conservative here and consider things like Megasaur, like War Leader, like Tarim as well, coming down to end the game.
Oh, Navi with the emote there. One thing Feelink not playing around seems to be the Primordial Drake. And it's not an instant play from Navi, though.
Again, it's not quite perfect, right? You still put yourself in a position where you'd be a little bit exposed to Deadly Shot, for example, no matter how you do it. Of course, there's only 1 card in hand, so there's very little concern about any given card being the option, but that's also a card that's been hanging around for, what, 5 or 6 turns now as well, so it's a card that you can potentially have some strong reads on. It is going to be the Primordial Drake. It's almost certainly going to be the Deadly Shot coming out the other way. Rat Pack is a decent pickup just to start pushing through some extra damage, but the potential Abomination now is going to be able to answer this board state as well, although that means he can't really develop anything alongside, so we might just see a big 8-drop coming down instead.
Yeah, Feelink really needs to pick up like his second Savannah Highmane now. Just something big Rat Pack is okay, but as you said, the Abomination would clear everything and just leave a couple rats on the board. Tyrion also going to do a pretty good job of clearing everything, unless there was a second deadly shot or something, but that always seems quite unlikely. Eaglehorn Bow will allow Feeling to get rid of Tyrion, but it's not nice.
Yeah, I mean, the Tyrion here kind of eats the whole board state anyway, and as I mentioned, the problem with A-Bomb is that you couldn't do anything alongside A-Bomb. It wasn't turn 10, you couldn't have gone like Kodo A-Bomb, for example, and even that isn't a particularly appealing play. So I think Australia have just decided it is time to chain these bombs until my opponent stops moving.
I like it. I like it. A-Bomb. I'm going to use that from now on.
You never heard A-Bomb before?
No. Ragnaros Lightlord looks like it's going to just lock the game down whenever it's played, be that this turn. Or trying to work out how I can put the word bomb into Rag Lightlord now. I'm not coming up with anything.
No, I like it though. Like I said, Tyrion on the previous turn, Rag Lightlord this turn. Just, chain the huge heavy-hitting minions that you have, and in the meantime, he's not worried about board state anymore. He's got 15 damage from Ashbringer. He's got an 8/8 in play. Crackling Razormaw can roll a poison here, but even then, it's just delaying the inevitable, honestly. There it is.
That was an instant pickup, though. Like, the moment Feeling saw it, picks up the poisonous. But 21 damage is going to take Feeling 11 turns of his hero power.
Well, he could poke face right now and cut it down to 10.
Yep. 9 even.
Got him.
Oh, 9 if he uses the weapon.
Ah, second Tyrion.
But yeah, that's yeah, it's looking
grin.
looking pretty bad for Team Spain now, as they're going to get their second loss in this series, meaning that one more game loss in the Hearthstone Global Games could be the end for Team Spain.
It could be. Honestly, like, out of these two, Spain are the one that can arguably afford a loss. They're the one where we'd really have to like start digging down into the maths of the group to figure out if they still had a chance, because they would fall to a 1-3 record. Whereas Australia would go to 0-3, which of course they can still recover from a 0-3 to a 1-3, but it puts them in a much more dramatically miserable position to have lost all 3 of their opening 3 games. So if the pressure is on either of these teams a little bit more, it's Australia, and they're responding to it, it seems, just a little bit better. That was a pretty crushing series, and I said the rest of the game is probably going to look a bit one-sided. It did, but it was all about that crucial concentration.
Right. Well, we're at the tough point in the series now. As you mentioned earlier, Evangelion and Duck went first for Spain. Duck actually lost his game, and now Feeling lost his game. It's down to Joe Semi. He needs to win this to give Duck a second chance to bring it back for Spain. On the other side, Australia, it's just Twiz on the Shaman.
Yeah, Shaman coming up against Paladin. Probably not the class you want to be relying on for all the marbles. You'd probably rather have the Paladin on your side if it came down to it. But unfortunately, for Australia, they can only win with Paladin once. I'm sure there's a lot of teams that would like to be able to pick up all 3 wins with Paladin in this tournament. But they're going to have to fall back on Shaman, which is a class we've talked about extensively. It's a fairly middle-of-the-road, mid-tier class these days. There's a lot of people pushing it, trying to innovate it, trying to find that last missing ingredient that pushes it over the edge to be a powerful class. But as of right now, there's a lot of decks showing promise. There's nothing quite consistently getting there.
It depends, I think, this matchup, specifically on how the Shaman and the Paladin are built, though. It can even turn into a value game with Spirit Echoes on one side, and then the Discover Taunts and Tyrions on the other side, and then Hexes and Devolves being very, very relevant, actually, for the Shaman.
No, I definitely agree. If it is a value-based Shaman, then the value battle probably does go in favor of the Shaman, because every advantage that Paladin usually has in that matchup, Stonehill Defender into Tyrion, well, Shaman can also go Stonehill Defender into White Eyes or whatever else it is, or Stonehill Defender into Thing from Below, which then costs 0 mana, and you strap a Spirit Echo on it. The Stonehill Defender goes both ways, but Shaman just having that extra push with the Spirit Echo, if it is that kind of deck, and just the ever-growing inevitability of the Jade package as well, that puts a straight value race in favor of the Shaman. The advantage that the Paladins have is that primarily they are a tempo deck.
Right.
They're a tempo deck with an enormous amount of late-game value sometimes when it comes down to it, but they can just crush you out of the game by turn 4 sometimes if they've got the most powerful draw.
They're able to just completely beat any other deck, Shaman in particular, just beat them down. Blasted by turn 4, Gentle Megasaur, buffing up a few Murlocs, that can just end the game right there. Shaman's comeback tools aren't quite as good as the Equality Pyromancer or Equality Consecration either. They've got Volcano, which costs 5 mana and doesn't always clear the whole board, and has Overload.
And yeah, Volcano is also very manipulable as well when you get used to it, because you know it's going to do exactly 15. It's not a Storm that might do 3 to this, might do 2 to this. It's going to do exactly 15 to your board. And just because of the way that like probability works, if there's 16 or 17 health total on your board, and one of your minions is like an 8/8 or a 9/9, like one big minion, it's actually more probable than you might even expect that one minion is the one that stays alive with the 1 or 2 health at the end of it. So you can create very abusable situations against Volcano, where you say, okay, go ahead and Volcano my 17 health board, because my 6/6 or 8/8 is going to live by the end of it.
Looking like it's going to be a relatively fast Paladin, though, from judging by Josemi's opening hand. Valfin Inquisitor, not a card that you see in the more control-y decks. Murloc Tidecaller also. This is a pretty good start for the Paladin.
It's a very good start for the Paladin. Sending back the Tarim, which I definitely agree with, but keeping as aggressive a start as he can. It is always a bit strange to look at these kind of really, really aggressive starts that then get interrupted by a Stonehill Defender. Right? It's just like you're loading out so much power. Like Murloc Tidecaller is a card that has only ever, prior to this expansion, been played in like super aggressive, dumb Murloc face decks that just try and high roll the Murloc synergy and beat the crap out of you.
Right.
But Murloc Tidecaller now is in a deck where your turn 3 play is quite often a 1/4 Taunt Discover card. Like it just makes no sense to me.
Hey, I don't think Josemi cares too much. Like Tidecaller and Inquisitor on turn 1, potentially. Rockpool Hunter on turn 2. Your board is so big and aggressive at that stage. Does it matter if you have to take a slow turn?
So he's considering the various lines here as to when he wants to use his coin. He'll be thinking about potentially Jade Claws from the opponent. So do I even want to have a 1/2 on the board? Maybe I just play the 1/3 and hold on to my coin. That way my opponent doesn't have a good Jade Claws target. Also, having now drawn Spike Ridge Steep, that's actually another potential place I can use my coin as well. I can just go 1, 2, 3, potentially pick up a 4 and then go coin 6. But he's just going to go for the line of play that you suggested, which I totally agree with, because if you're expecting the Spirit Echo Shaman, which I think is the most common form of Shaman these days, we discussed it at length early on.
Yeah.
You're not winning a value game.
Yeah.
Your job is tempo. So I definitely agree with the decision overall, just to load out on pressure as much as you can.
Speaking of tempo, we were talking a lot about what Spain's turn 3 is going to look like with the Stonehill Defender.
Solid.
Yeah, I don't think that Stonehill Defender is the play on turn 3 anymore.
It seems unlikely that that will be the case. I agree.
Twiz, all he cares about, really, is surviving. If he can get a good Volcano down on turn 5 and just survive a little bit longer until he gets some healing, then he's going to have a great shot, as you said, at winning the value game. But at the moment, that feels like it's a really long way away.
It is. And small point as well, tiny decision about which Murloc to buff on the previous turn. Some people may have been tempted to just load up on the Murloc Tidecaller, since that's the highest priority threat, but this allowed him to more reasonably ration out the damage between the Taunt Totem and face, because, you know, you've got to ration damage to face. And also creates the position now where you can deal perfectly with Manatide Totem, which is always a concern, right? You don't want to go into a turn 3 having 3 minions on board that have 2 attack each, because that's really inefficient to kill Manatide Totem. This setup works perfectly fine, and as you mentioned, he's just jamming War Leader anyway if this board state doesn't get dealt with.
I mean, buffing the Inquisitor into a 2/4 is great. A 1-mana 2/4. It looks like it's a good shape. Jade Lightning deals with it perfectly, but then that's a 4-mana card.
Yep.
That's dealing with your 1-mana card.
And not dealing with your Murloc Tidecaller.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to actually hex the Murloc Tidecaller.
Oh, boy.
Storm wouldn't deal with the 2/4 as well. That's another aspect. But now, Murloc War Leader. What were we saying earlier about how the Paladin can just win on turn 4?
Yeah, I actually don't hate the Hex decision. It looks kind of ridiculous, but in terms of the amount of damage it reduces overall, it's actually not that bad. And like one of the considerations you'd be thinking about is, okay, well, what if War Leader comes down? Well, if War Leader comes down, you just Jade Lightning it anyway.
Yeah.
So I think he's prevented what 5 extra damage by hexing that on the previous turn. If he didn't hex it on the previous turn, it's still alive now, having a chance to attack next turn as well. So we're looking at maybe 10 damage that he's prevented with the hex. Starting to look more reasonable when you think about it, right?
I'm sorry, Softal, but I'm just looking at this screen in bewilderment because the way that Josemi is just picking up his curve as he goes along. He picked up the War Leader to play on 3, Gentle Megasaur into Wind Fury. If the War Leader survived, this game would just be over now.
It would, yeah.
That being said, I think we have a Volcano because Twiz is in the position where he's desperate enough where he has to play it.
And 4, 7, 11, 12, 13 health on the board means this is a full clear, and it's a very timely full clear because this board state cannot hang around for much longer. A, because he's just kind of dead, and B, Tarim would come down and crush the game, even if he was able to make a couple of defensive plays over the next couple of turns.
Second Gentle Megasaur being picked up there.
And crucially, has the Tidal Hand hero power, so he has Murlocs on demand.
Right.
Sometimes Megasaur can actually be a whiff when you've had a good start and got so many of your early game Murlocs out first, but because he was able to hit the Inquisitor, he now has Tidal Hand, which means he's always going to have these Murlocs hanging around in play ready for the buff.
That Volcano was able to clear the rest of the board, though, just in the nick of time. However, Twiz only has 11 health left. He's going to want to play that Hotspur's Guardian as soon as possible, but more importantly, he needs to get these Jades built up.
It's not a great looking Tarim, I can tell you that much.
Nah, Spain's getting close to lethal with the Tarim. Can put Australia down to 5. However, it's just no good for control of the board.
Yeah, when you're pushing lethal in this kind of situation, like Tarim, just make your opponent's board 2 3/3s as well and just hit face, is honestly perfectly reasonable because you have a 3/7 taunt in the way of any value trades happening.
Yeah.
The problem in this spot is that his Stonehill Defender is already a taunt minion. So the 3/3 into 3/3 value trade will just always be able to take place on the board.
Yeah.
So having seen a Hex get used, it feels like Spike Ridge Steed might just be a better way to push damage in this position. And using it on the Murloc here diversifies his threats just that little bit more as well, and also gives him more of a positive outcome on the following turn from, say, Wind Fury again from Gentle Megasaur, because he's buffed the power of the Murloc.
I was about to say, if there's no Hex or Devolve as well, then Grime Street Protector would be a viable play next turn, just giving the 3/5 Divine Shield. Or if the Murloc, even if the Murloc died, giving the Staggeredon Divine Shield. That's a pretty high value play, though the Devolve does get picked up. Can Twiz fit that into his curve this turn, and does he actually want to?
Does he have to? I think is a better question. Like, does this? He can devolve this this Murloc with the Spike Ridge Steed on it at any point, as long as it doesn't kill him in the near future. Like, obviously, devolving a hero power token that has a huge buff on it into a Wisp is a massive plus for you. Like you said, it's a little bit awkward curve-wise that turn. He can fill it out now with Hot Spring Guardian Totem or Hot Spring Guardian Blood Mage, or same options with the Manatide Totem. But he didn't necessarily have to go and do it that turn. He could have chosen to wait one more turn and had a more natural curve play with the Aya.
Looks like there was maybe some consideration in playing the Manatide Totem there instead of the Hot Spring Guardian.
For sure, yeah.
Just to start to fill this hand, maybe get some more healing cards. However, he decided that his health was just a little bit too low to take that risk. And now he's got a Taunt up with 13 health. It's not feeling quite as scary as it was before.
Yeah, Shaman's starting to turn the corner here after how ridiculously aggressive that opening was. The Volcano came in huge for the board clear, and then it was that Stonehill Defender that I was talking about so early on. Like, all these aggressive plays then got backed up by, on turn 5, 1-4, 1-1 go, right? Like, that's just not aggressive in any way. And, like, I totally get these Paladin decks in terms of there's such a robust, versatile toolbox of a deck in terms of being able to do anything that you throw at it. This Paladin deck has the options. But sometimes those cards just step on each other's toes and get in each other's ways, and you draw a defensive card when you want an aggressive card, and so on.
When a deck starts to become a little bit greedy, like this Paladin is leaning towards now, as we enter the later part of the game, when it's against another greedy deck, the greedier deck tends to be advantaged, and this Shaman deck is certainly greedier than the Paladin. Volcano not looking like a great card to play this turn, but could be good very, very soon if Josemi starts to get control of the board again. Aya just going to do what Aya does and really put some pressure onto the board, both in terms of the current board, the Death Rattle, and also the fact that those Jade Golems are just much bigger than they were earlier.
And that Kodo could be an enormous draw, actually, to the detriment of Spain, because it's very, very possible that that is equivalent to not drawing a card this turn from Spain, because that's their second Gentle Megasaur in hand. And 2 Megasaur, 1 Kodo is often the makeup that gets put together into the Curator list. So they've now exhausted, potentially, all possible beasts in the deck before playing Curator.
You can almost compare that to the feeling of drawing patches. You lose the card draw in the exact same way.
Right. Or you draw an Avenge on the turn you were going to play Mysterious Challenger back in the day. Like there's a lot of things in history that just tend to troll you in this kind of unique way, and Curator tends to be one of them. We'll see though. He might have a second Kodo or some auxiliary stuff in his deck that we don't know about.
All right, Tarim going to come down very, very aggressively here. There's 9 damage on the board. This is almost lethal. With Gentle Megasaur, this could easily be a lethal setup, actually. Attack or Wind Fury would do it.
Crucially, there is 16 health as well, because otherwise Volcano is actually really nice here. Like, if the Volcano could have just killed the 3 minions on the Paladin side, killed your Aya and just left your Jade Golem behind coming out of the Death Rattle, that would have been perfect. But there is 1 too much health in play for that to happen. As I mentioned before, when there's 1 too much health in play, there is a very high chance that the 1 surviving minion is the highest health minion, in which case it will most likely be the Tarim.
And ironically, there's nothing that Australia can do to fix that because of Aya's Death Rattle.
Exactly.
If he could trade in Aya and leave nothing on the board, and then a Volcano, and then maybe, I guess, put Jinyu Water Speaker on the board, great, but...
Well, he can do that. It's just not as powerful a play, right? Because you're taking... you'd leave, what, 4, 8, and you'd take so much health off the board by trading first. The problem is, it's a powerful play in the first place because you leave behind a Golem on the board afterwards, and you're just kind of taking that away from yourself.
Okay, Raglite Lord again, one of the most control-y cards in the Paladin deck. Not relevant right now, it's just an 8/8. It's relevant if Josemi was to want to trade Tarim in and then heal that up, but that's not the most value that you can squeeze out of Ragnaros Light Lord. Grime Street Protector looks very strong though.
Grime Street Protector does look solid. Megasaur is potentially high value here as well. +3 attack, poison, and Wind Fury a little bit can all get some work done. +1/+1 enables a value trade into the Jinyu Water Speaker as well, potentially. It's actually a very tough turn. A lot of great options. Grime Street Protector definitely seems like the most solid, decent play, whereas Megasaur has a little bit of high roll potential. But I like the Grime Street here, just taking the value trades where he can. Probably going to take care of the spell damage totem in this spot with his remaining attack from the 3/3. Yep, seems like a smart call.
So now I wonder if this is Spirit Echo turn. Can Twiz hope to get more value out of it? Lightning Storm, if there was still a spell damage totem there, Lightning Storm would be very strong, but unfortunately, Josemi saw to that. Twiz could start this turn with a hero power, and then Spirit Echo Lightning Storm.
It's a possibility. I'm looking again at trying to manipulate Volcano to do something worthwhile, but it's not easy to do unless you're committing the Storm as well, which is then just a huge overcommitment in terms of your resources to clear the board. So it's not looking like a pretty turn whatsoever, and I have to say Spain have done this very well to create these kind of awkward board positions that don't get cleanly answered by any one given AoE option from the Shaman, which is crucial to success when you're playing against one of these kinds of decks.
Okay. Twiz going to go ahead, play the Spirit Echo now. It does allow him to replay Aya from the hand this turn. Actually going to go ahead and play the Volcano.
Interesting. There you go. Highest health minion survives.
I guess leaving a 3/3 on the board's not so bad.
It's reasonable, for sure.
Until it gets healed up.
Yeah, this looks fairly straightforward. Raglight Lord and Hero Power. Take your full value healing. Back on the Tarim. Go face. Set up to end the game.
One Hex has been used way back when on turn 3.
On turn 3, yeah.
One Devolve has been used. So there's still a potential for a second Hex from Twiz. Then again, if you're on Team Spain, do you care about your Ragnaros Lightlord being hexed? You've still got a Tyrion somewhere in the deck.
Yeah, absolutely not. I mean, there's only one left. There's only 2 cards in your opponent's hand that it could be, because you know the other 2 are Jinyu Water Speaker and Aya. So I like just generate a huge threat here. I mean, it's not only a huge threat, it just deals so much. It's so helpful to healing up your Tarim. You saw that was a very weird, slightly inefficient play come down from the opponent in that position. So you feel like they probably want that thing at 3 health for a reason. They want it injured for a reason. That probably smells like Lightning Storm to you. So taking off the big heal here is definitely a huge upside.
J-Claws coming quite a bit too late. You'd quite like to see that on turn 2 if you're the Shaman. But Aya, what are we on now? 5/5 Jade Golem into 6/6 Jade Golem when the Aya dies? Doesn't stop you from just dying, though, on 14 health. As Gentle Megasaur probably represents lethal here.
Yeah, and with the overload from the Volcano on the previous turn, that means Aya and Jinyu can't come down at the same time. So if Twiz does want to make a defensive play here, that probably means no Aya, which again is just another upside to this Light Lord play on the previous turn. By threatening lethal, you actually force a lack of value from your opponent, but Australia are just not going to take that bait. They're going to say, you know what? Find your 2 damage.
There it is.
And there it is with War Leader guaranteed.
Yeah, so Megasaur, I said quite likely to be lethal with the Megasaur. I guess it wasn't. It was only +3 attack. Wind Fury wouldn't have done it. +1/1 wouldn't have done it. It was just the attack, but still, 2 damage tends to be possible for Paladin to find when they run True Silver Champions and Consecrations and Murloc War Leaders.
Right.
So risky play from the Shaman, but what else can they do? That Ragnaros Lightlord wasn't going anywhere.
No, I don't think, I totally agree with the position there of Australia, just saying, okay, do you know what? We're not going to play around this lethal this turn. We're going to try and develop into the board. Because if you make an incredibly weak turn that turn to play around Consecration, Murloc War Leader, the things that kill you, suddenly your opponent only has to have Primordial Drake, Curator, Tyrion, just some sort of big board play.
Yeah.
And then that's essentially lethal anyway. Like, you can't beat that if you don't develop into the board.
But we are going to now be heading into the ace match. It's going to be a rogue mirror. So the way that the ace match works, in case we didn't explain it earlier, one of the players chosen as the ace player comes back with and can choose between the deck that he didn't bring earlier and the ace deck. This is what we were saying about how Warlock is usually the ace deck because people don't want to play Warlocks. They shove it at the end and try not to play it. But we're going to end up with 2 rogues, which we expect, I think, to be quest rogues, but
I do.
Miracle Rogue has been making some waves recently.
Yeah,
other tournaments.
It's always been there. It's it's kind of the black sheep of the rogue family right now. Like, it's always around, but no one's really talking about it. Like, quest rogue is getting all the headlines. But it's still a decent deck in its own right, and I know people have had a lot of success with it still very recently. I know Casey, my Complexity teammate, is still a huge advocate of the deck, still thinks it's very strong. But yes, I made this argument in the previous series when I was casting with Raven about how it seems to me like there are 2 ways to go about this. You've either put the time into Quest Rogue to feel comfortable and be a strong Quest Rogue player, in which case you bring Quest Rogue, or you haven't, and then maybe you don't, right? Like, that's about what it comes down to. And that sounds obvious, but Quest Rogue is a deck that has kind of a flat baseline of where a bad player's win rate will be and an average player's win rate will be. Those 2 numbers are quite close together. But there is an extra level that you can go to of playing the deck very well, which then just brings you all the way up here. That can really push you up to a level of winning games that other players won't be able to. And I think that's where you need to be at to play the deck in tournament.
Just like Grim Patron.
Shut up. Okay.
I was waiting to slip that in.
I could see on your face the whole time as I was talking. I was like, I'm going to stop talking, and he's going to make a Patron joke. It's going to happen.
Genuinely, though, Quest Rogue is one of the decks that I'm most excited about moving forward to see what the next tech will be. Because 12-bit Stone Shaper was really surprising when that got included, when Zixo came up with that one.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering what the next one's going to be. What crazy 7-mana card is going to somehow make it into this deck.
Stop playing Curator. It's in everything else. I'm sure that makes sense somewhere along the line.
As expected, we are going to see Quest Rogue on both sides here. Shadow Step in Jowan's hand. And Novice Engineer, actually, that looks pretty good. On the other side, Mimic Pod also very, very strong in this matchup.
A little slow, though, I think, on the Mimic Pod side. I think, obviously, this is a matchup much like the Quest Warrior Mirror, where it's very hard to play from behind if your opponent gets the quest off and you don't. So you're always a little bit concerned about how powerful your opponent's draw is going to be when you keep something as slow as Mimic Pod. And now the double Hungry Crab draw from Duck is both good and bad. It's good in that it's a pair of cards, which is always a positive for Quest Rogue, but miserable because Hungry Crab is a tech that some people are including just to give this deck a chance against the aggressive Murloc Paladins, and it's a huge whiff in the deck otherwise.
You know, I'd say, though, because he's picked up both of them, it actually works out very, very well. There's a higher chance now of Duck completing the quest very, very quickly due to the Youthful Brewmasters, the Gadgetzan Ferryman, the Shadow Steps. He only needs to pick up 2 bouncers, and that's it, job done.
Right. Or, yeah, he needs to pick up 2 bouncers, or he needs to Mimic Pod a bouncer. And then he's all the way there. Just needs to allocate the mana correctly. But now, Jowan also finds a pair of Glacial Shards in this case, which is a slightly more high-value minion to be repeatedly bouncing. He can use it to gain some tempo at the same time. So Australia looking in the driver's seat just for now. Novice Engineer, great value card for now, but it's going to be a little bit slow in terms of quest activation. So we will see now both of these players, both of these teams are kind of reaching critical mass as to how they want to go about activating their quest. They're going to have to decide and commit to something very, very soon.
Oh my goodness, so many pairs being picked up. This is almost a little bit silly.
Ooh, hello.
Okay, well, Duck is almost ready to go. Tar Creeper is an interesting tech, which is relatively new to the deck in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's literally like a day or two after Tolvir Stone Shaper. People went, well, hang on. If we're trying to elemental curve into a turn 4 Tolvir Stone Shaper, don't we just do the thing that all the elemental shaman decks were doing on like day 1 of the expansion and play Tar Creeper as well?
Makes sense. Yeah. Tar Creeper seeing a lot of play in multiple different decks at the moment. And now Duck has got like one of each of his cards on the board.
This is actually really smart because it lets him maximum develop on tempo. It also says, okay, there's now 3 minions in play. If you don't kill all 3 of these minions, then any one of them I am happy to then start bouncing back to my hand and start activating a quest on. I have the tools to do it on any of these cards right now.
It's difficult. It's really difficult to say who is ahead here. Jowan able to play Glacial Shard after Glacial Shard seems pretty strong, but he's also used up patches already, and that's actually a really relevant resource after the quest gets complete. If Duck can complete quest into deckhand and patches, that's pretty horrible to have to play against because you just lose your board and suddenly there's a bunch of 5/5s looking at you.
So this now really is decision point for Spain. That's a 2 count on the Novice Engineer, which means that is the second legitimate Novice Engineer in the deck, which means if he wants to complete it with Novices, he has to commit the Shadow Step right now to keep going.
Right.
So this is real breakpoint number 1 for Spain as to what they want to do. Mimic Pod can get cast first here. There's no harm in doing that. If he wants to go down that line and just get more information about what the rest of his hand looks like. But we will see now the first real, game-altering decision here from Spain as to whether they go all in on this Novice Engineer.
Ideally, I suppose, Duck picks up a Shadow Step from a Mimic Pod or something. Preparation isn't horrible, though you only really need 1. Like, he's going to complete the quest, and that's it. Vanish, not so great in this matchup, though it can pick up some value later on if Jowan was to get complete board control. He can just halt him for 1 turn.
Still a bounce short now is Spain, though. They've picked up all of these combinations of pairs of minions early on, but not a single natural bounce effect apart from that Shadow Step. No bounce minions. So Joan now is going to go fishing for bounce effects of his own, and that is Balfin Tidehunter number 2 and 3, which means he has a clean completion in hand now on Balfin's if he wants it.
Well, there you go. It is getting a little bit late, really. Like, we're almost on turn 6 and no quest being complete yet. It's quite surprising. I feel as though by turn 6 in this matchup, usually at least one of the quests has been finished. Both players having to take their time, although Australia, while completing the quest, they've somehow managed to get complete board control.
And it's perhaps not as... Or maybe you're a little bit more surprised than you should be, I guess is what I want to say, because the deck has slowed down a little bit recently, particularly the build that we see from Australia with the Elemental Taunts.
Right.
And I made the point earlier that, you know, if you only start doing quest stuff on turn 5 and turn 6... Well, turn 6 is already as much mana as turn 1, 2, and 3 put together. So you only really fall one turn behind, even though you've spent 4 entire turns of the game not doing anything. And you can see, now look at the rest of Australia's hand. On turn 6, Balfin Tidehunter number 2 gets played. Balfin Tidehunter number 3 gets played. That's 4 mana committed. Shadow Step pulls one back to the hand. Balfin Tidehunter number 4 gets played. 2 mana to spare, prep, quest.
Ouch. And I was, just for a moment there, I was feeling a little bit bad for Joe, and he actually just got his Murloc eaten up by the Hungry Crab.
Sure.
That we were poking fun at earlier. It actually did get some value, but now it's hard to feel bad for Jowan going into what is going to be an insane turn. Shadow Step being picked up as well. And that's just more 5/5s with Taunt. Or another freeze effect.
It's more anything you want, and that's what that is. He is going to have to. He's going to run into some board space issues here, so he's going to have to work out what is trading this turn, if anything. The weird factor with that is that these minions are all 5/5, so trading them off the board before they become 5/5 seems pretty stupid. But of course, the extra minions that you're generating, the 1/1 slimes, have upside over any of your other minions because they have taunt. So you have to be a little bit careful about how you choose to play out this turn.
It is really scary to think that over the course of this turn, Jowan has basically just summoned 6 5/5s, 3 of which have taunt. That's the end result of this turn.
Right. And this is what I'm saying, right? Like, why worry too much about what you're doing on turns 1, 2, and 3?
Yeah.
Why not spend those turns just consolidating your board position, making sure you don't die, answering any threats that you need to from the opponent, and then if you can just get the whole quest done and prep it out on turn 6, then why the hell not?
Duck looked so unhappy just a moment ago there. I think it may have been when he saw the preparation, but this is just devastating. What can Duck even draw to solve this problem? A Vanish? Even that postpones Jowan for 1 turn and that's it. And actually fills up his hand with more value.
Yeah, and that is just going to be it. And I think, honestly, that was textbook Quest Rogue. Honestly, it wasn't an absolute insane blowout hand. It wasn't one of those get the quest done on turn 3, turn 4, and then quest on 5 and just end you. It was a hand where you had to work out what were you activating the quest on. Be as patient as you possibly can. Find as much information as you possibly can, and then formulate a game plan using that patience to find yourself a plan on turn 6 or beyond. And it was a hell of a plan when it came together.
Right. I think I might have nightmares tonight about playing against a Quest Rogue and my opponent summoning 6 5/5s.
I'll tuck you in, make you a warm glass of milk, read you a bedtime story.
I think Duck needs that more than I do right now, though, as Spain take their 3rd loss in the Hearthstone Global Games. They have won a game as well. It's not all doom and gloom, but if they want to get through to the next phase, they're going to need to win all of their games, and they're going to need some luck as well.
And I have to say, I do really like the innovation of the Quest Rogue. With the extra taunt minions, I think it's brought such a nice new dynamic to the deck where it's not so linear anymore, right?
Yeah.
Like, you don't just have to all-in quest as fast as you possibly can. You can spend a few turns just playing quality minions, and then suddenly you have 6, 7 mana available to you in a single turn. You can just go off, just get the job done in 1 turn. It's insane.
Well, it certainly helped Australia lock down the mirror, as Tar Creeper just meant that Spain couldn't deal with anything, couldn't trade into any of the other minions. As we can see the results for the series that we just watched. Evangelion taking game number 1, Josemi taking game number 4 for Spain, but unfortunately, the team losing the rest of the games, Duck losing the ace game vitally at the end there. Yeah.
If you want to talk about the pro player content creator split that we've been mentioning as well, it's one of each that picked up a win there in the series. So content creators definitely not disgracing themselves. I honestly don't know how much you can read into that situation anyway, because of course the players are completely communicating amongst themselves. Everything is a shared endeavor, but still, no one wants to see the content creators just getting buried and dumpstered every week, right?
It's nice all a team effort anyway. I believe we have an interview with Navi Oot.
Hey, Raven, Falcone, how are you guys?
Hey, how's it going, man? Congratulations for your win. Very, very important one for you guys. How are you feeling coming into this?
Yeah, obviously we were pretty nervous because it'd be impossible to advance if we lost. But at the same time, we were pretty confident because the first 2 teams we played, Russia and Argentina, I think a lot of people would say that they're the strongest in the group. Right. So we kind of just accepted that and just said, moving on, we think we can win our next games, and that should give us a pretty good chance to advance. So a lot of relief, but it's good to get on the board.
Talk to us a little bit about the Quest Rogue build as well, because it's something that I'm very interested in. Of course, Stone Shaper appeared for a while, and then Tar Creeper came quickly behind it. What's the idea of bringing that build in particular to this tournament?
Sure. Well, obviously, on ladder release, which dictates a lot of the builds, I think. People played the Stone Shaper because it helped against the aggro matchups a bit. And Tar Creeper does the same, but it's just 1 turn earlier because it's 3 mana. So, yeah, we really like Tar Creeper.
Interesting. I mean, it definitely did work there because it let you just basically dictate the entire board in the mirror, right? You just put that wall in the way and suddenly you had a bunch of 1/2s and 2/1s that couldn't get killed. And then suddenly the quest came down. So it looked like an impressive card in the mirror as well, not just for stopping aggro.
Yeah, a lot of the minions that don't necessarily have charge, it let us protect those, and then all of a sudden we play the quest, they have charge, so yeah, it's great.
Tell me a little bit about you guys' team synergy. Has it been improving over time, the more games that you play? How's your communication?
Yeah. So the first game we had, it was pretty abysmal. Without a doubt, it's the thing that we need to work on the most. Against Russia, it was a lot better. I think our games were pretty good. Just a couple of draws didn't necessarily go our way, and I think the 2-3 score that we had against them reflects that. And I mean, in the Priest game, this set just gone, it was there were some errors obviously with the counter spell turn, right. But no, it's getting better week by week.
Well, congratulations for your win. Thanks so much for your time, man.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Congrats. Hopefully, one day, Navi will learn to tell the difference between me and Raven. I'm pretty confident. You just went ahead and started asking questions, so I didn't want to deal with it. But I'm pretty sure that one was deliberate because the first time I met Navi was in the Bahamas, and he said, "Oh, hey, Raven," accidentally, and then he turned away his face in shame because he realized what he'd done and tried to cover the fact.
He stuck his tongue out, so yeah, I think it was a joke. I was just happy that someone got my name right.
There you go.
Your name wrong.
Yeah, why not? You finally made it. Falcon?
Yes,
Falcone?
Something like that.
Okay.
Something like that. As we look back at that surprising win, I think, for Spain, the Mage versus the Priest. As we were saying just before that game, Priest's usually quite favored in that matchup.
Yeah, and I think it's a combination of Secret Mage coming up against Silence Priest, which is 2 of the kind of weird niche builds, if you like. That aren't usually considered, and also that early mistake, which I think Navi fessed up to there as well with the Potion of Madness. That Potion of Madness that could have been used to pop the counterspell was stuck in the hand all the way right up until the late game, which I think it was then cycled off Lyra to no success.
And hey, that still matters. The fact that Australia lost that first game still matters because it meant that the series went into game number 5, means that their game score isn't quite as good.
Sure.
And now if they do lose another game, then it's not going to look quite as good for them. Spain, on the other hand, it's good for them that they actually only lost 3-2. They still got 2 wins on the board, meaning that if they do get to win their next 2 series, they still have a chance to come back.
Yeah, and crucially, as you mentioned as well, Navi brought up the fact that they only lost 2-3 to Russia, for example. So not a big hit to the game score in that. And when you do have the kind of records that these teams have, the 1-3s and so on that you're trying to fight back from, there is a good chance that the best you are hoping for is a tiebreak situation with another team for third place. That's basically what you're gunning for, in which case your game score, your game record overall is absolutely crucial.
This is, I believe, the longest series that we've seen of Spain, actually, because they lost to Russia 3-0, then they beat Argentina 3-0, and then they lost to New Zealand 1-3. So this is the first time that we've actually seen Spain go all the way through to the ace match.
Interesting. Definitely been taken to the test fully and in the end vanquished by Australia, but as we mentioned, they were the team out of the two that undisputedly needed to get this win on the board, because no one wants to be staring up at a 0-3 record. And you can see now that 1-2 looking a lot rosier, pushing them up to 4th in the group, and in fact leapfrogging Spain to really be hot on the heels of, let's say, local rivals New Zealand.
Right,
Put it that way.
Right. Spain, with their 1-3, it's not all doom and gloom. As I mentioned before, it's still possible if they win every single series and maybe get some 3-0s and 3-1s in, then they could get out of Group C, but it's really not looking good for them. And as for Austria, they're in the same spot soon that Australia were just in now. They need to win their next game. It's vital if they want any hope of advancing.
Yep, and these are the kind of games that we are going to see more and more as these groups progress, because we are getting down to the meat and potatoes of these groups, every game having something on the line.
Meat and potatoes.
Yeah.
I like it. We are going to go to a very short break, and then South Korea versus Hungary. Don't go anywhere.
We're almost there. Quiet down, everyone. This is not like any of our previous expeditions. This will be far more ambitious. We're stepping into a land of primordial wonder. Infused with astonishing elemental energies. The plant life here holds very unusual properties. So don't touch anything. And while you may be excited to see the local fauna, you might want to make sure they don't see you. Because their powers of adaptation are devastating. Make no mistake, we will be tested at every turn. But if we stay on our guard, we might just survive. Now then, are you ready? Then let's journey into Ongoro Crater.